Yes, you ready? Call the jury, Mr. Chavez.
All right.
Good morning, you may be seated. Name, call the next witness.
State calls Mitchell Bingston.
Morning, swear you will please take a seat. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth and the counsel of law?
Yes, I do.
Take a seat.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you please introduce yourself to the jury and spell your first and last name for the court?
Mitch Bingston, Mitchbengston.
Where are you employed?
I'm sorry?
Where are you employed?
With New Mexico State Police.
And how long have you been with the New Mexico State Police?
Just shy of 16 years.
And what is your position with them?
I'm a criminal investigator.
And how long have you been a criminal investigator?
Total, about 7 years.
Okay. And as a criminal investigator, what sort of duties do you do?
Investigates all manner of crimes, including felonies, ranging from crimes against children to homicide.
And how did you become aware of the incident that we're here to discuss today?
I was called out by Sergeant Carolyn Lucero from my home. It was after hours and told to go to the Rio Rancho area for a briefing.
Okay, and you said after hours. Do you know what time it was?
I don't. I know that it was dark.
It was dark. And what happened once you arrived on scene?
When I arrived on scene, I was given a briefing to include information of a shooting which had occurred in the area, given a suspect name possibly of Andrew Romero with a date of birth, and a silver Dodge Durango that had left the area. And the descriptors on that, it had a C&M sticker in the lower left-hand corner of the rear window, as well as tinted back windows, and I believe that there was the license plate was 331 RAT.
And what did you do with that information?
I was assigned with Agent Ray White to go into the Rio Rancho and Albuquerque area to see if we could locate that vehicle.
Where did you go?
First went into the Rio Rancho area, the areas immediately surrounding that area on Southern where we did the briefing, and then down into Albuquerque into the Trumbull area where there was had been reported that there was possibly friends and family of Mr. Romero.
Okay, so you went down to that area?
I did.
And what happened once you got there?
When I was in that area, Agent White was on the phone pretty consistently with the command post, and they had called him and said, we need you to leave that area because we already have agents in that area, and we don't want to ruin what their surveillance and what they were doing.
And where did you go from there?
We traveled out of that area onto I-25 or I-41st and then I-25. We took Paseo del Norte, and we were going back toward the Coors area when Agent White received a second phone call saying that aircraft was in the area. They had seen a vehicle. It was a silver, I believe it was a Chevy Impala, leave one of the residences, and they believed that Mr. Romero was possibly inside. They were not sure at that point, and I was assigned to go back toward where that vehicle was currently, which they said that it was on, I believe, the I-40 area.
Okay, so where did you go then?
We took Coors down to I-40, and as we were approaching I-40, we were told that that vehicle had exited onto Rio Grande and had gone to a gas station there. So we proceeded down from Coors down to Rio Grande, and as I was exiting, I was at the bottom of that ramp when I looked across to my right and where that gas station was and saw a silver Impala. At that point, I saw a male subject run out of the store and get into the front passenger seat of that Impala. The vehicle immediately took off, turned right, which was traveling east down that road, and I'm not sure what the name of that was. I turned across Rio Grande and started to follow that vehicle, watched as it continued to speed up, ran through 2 stop signs, and then started making erratic turns in that neighborhood area.
Let me stop you real quick. Let me show you what's marked as, or what's been admitted as states 313. What are we looking at here? Does this look like what you saw when you...
It looks like the Chevy Impala, and I don't know what gas station that is.
Okay. So backing up to the gas station, you said that you observed a male run from the store and get into the vehicle. Is this the scene that you saw?
From a completely different angle, it looks like the same one that I saw, yes. I was actually off from this picture, I was on the driver's side and off the front of the vehicle out towards that ramp.
Okay. Is this the vehicle that you did observe?
It appears to be, yes.
So now from there, you said that the car went through some neighborhoods.
It did. At one point, I saw the vehicle turn off its lights and continue to drive. At that point, Agent White and I, we stopped and parked in that residential area. Not knowing that the helicopter was up, they were tracking that vehicle's movements and could see where it was traveling. They were calling that out by radio to the command post, and that was being relayed to Agent White on the phone while I was driving, but at that point I was parked. We were told, and at one point we actually observed the vehicle on one of the side streets that was perpendicular to where we were parked, had only running lights on at that point. And the car stopped, the driver's door opened, and the driver got out, got into the back seat, didn't see anyone else exit the vehicle, so somebody inside must have slid into the driver's seat. The driver's door closed, and then the vehicle proceeded on. After a little while, the helicopter advised that the vehicle had entered onto I-40. I believe it was from 6th Street.
Let's slow down just a little bit. Okay, so you're in the neighborhood and you're not following the vehicle.
That's correct.
So where were you whenever the vehicle stopped and all of that happened?
I was parked at an intersection and I was facing east. I observed to the north on that perpendicular street that was in front of me, far off to the left, that vehicle was facing me with only parking lights on, and we watched it stop, and that's when we saw the driver exit. And then shortly after that, the driver's door closed, and it continued on, and as it drove towards me, it actually took a right-hand turn, so it was traveling west at that point, still in that neighborhood area.
Okay. And explain to us where all this information is coming from that you're getting.
All I knew at that point was that there was a police helicopter that was above our location in orbit, and they were calling out that the direction and location of that vehicle at all times.
So was that coming over your radio? Or?
No, they were calling that to the command post by radio. I didn't happen to have the frequency that they were talking on in my car, so they were calling that out to the command post, and then it was being relayed by phone, and I don't know who Agent White was talking to, but it was being relayed to him over the phone.
Okay, so who was driving?
I was driving.
Thank you. Okay, so vehicles in the neighborhood, and then what?
Shortly, we actually lost sight of the vehicle, Agent White and I, but a helicopter was giving us location. They advised that it entered onto Interstate 40, traveling east. So Agent White and I followed up into that area. We got onto I-40, and as we were entering I-40, they said the vehicle was traveling onto the ramp to go 25 south. So we continued to speed up, took that exit onto I-25 south, and we caught up to that vehicle right around Cesar Chavez. And the helicopter confirmed by radio, of course, through the command post and then over the phone to us, that we were directly behind that vehicle. So we identified that silver Chevy Impala once again as being the correct one that we were looking for in the beginning. As we continued to travel, Agent White was on the phone asking, well, what do you want us to do? Do you want us to continue to follow it? Do you want us to attempt to stop it? What would you like us to do? And when they came back and said, we want you to stop that vehicle, at that point, I got on the radio and called to my dispatch and said, asked them to clear the air, that we were going to be doing a felony stop on this vehicle, gave them the license plate information. Actually, I couldn't read the license plate because all of the reflective paint had chipped off, and I was not able to clearly see what the plate was at that point. Told them that we were going to be doing a felony stop. They cleared the air, and all of this took some time. So as we were traveling, we decided, okay, we're ready to actually do this stop. Agent,
what does it mean by you're ready to actually do the stop?
By then, our radio had cleared the air. We had already been told to go ahead and do the stop. Agent White and I discussed how we were going to do this stop. We chose to do a felony stop.
What is a felony stop?
A felony stop is where we do not approach the vehicle. We position our police unit at a position behind that vehicle where we can have visual at all times. Agent White had his rifle with him, and we discussed that I would have my pistol, and that way I could holster and have open hands in order to handcuff anyone who came back out of the vehicle. So we discussed this and developed this plan.
Okay, why were you doing a felony stop?
We were doing a felony stop because we believed that at that point Mr. Romero was in that vehicle, and we did not know at that point whether he had any weapons.
Had you received any other information regarding the people inside that vehicle?
I did not. I don't know if Agent White did over the phone, but he did say that they believed that he was in that vehicle.
Okay. All right, so where did the vehicle go next?
I engaged my lights, and the vehicle initially slowed. The brake lights came on, and then the brake lights went off, and the vehicle sped up very quickly, continuing to travel on I-25 southbound. That was right at Sunport, is where I turned my emergency equipment on. Vehicle continued on until we got to Rio Bravo, and then exited. Agent White and I continued after this vehicle. We had discussed that there were several police units that were lined up facing to the east.
Now, police units, what agencies were they from?
Some of them were unmarked, but some of them had the markings of Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office.
Thank you. Okay, and then, so you're on Rio Bravo, and then where does the vehicle go?
The vehicle turned west on Rio Bravo as it exited, and we continued directly behind the vehicle. At that point, all of the Bernalillo County Sheriff's units turned on their emergency equipment and began to turn around in a U-turn and get in behind us. The Impala turned right onto, I'm not sure of it was a very small road, turned right, which is north, and then jumped over the raised median, the curb, jumped over that median and did a U-turn. As I was following, one of the SO units was in an SUV and able to navigate the curb a little bit better than my little car. They jumped that curb and were able to get ahead of me as the vehicle finished the U-turn and then immediately turned right into a gas station right there.
Okay, and so approximately how many police vehicles were involved in this stop?
I don't know. I believe that there were 7 that were lined up as I turned onto Rio Bravo, but once I saw that they turned their emergency equipment on and I knew that they were officers, I didn't continue to count. I kept my focus on the vehicle.
Okay. And I'm showing you it's been marked as State's Exhibit 145. Let me back up a little bit. Does this accurately depict the scene as it was at the stop?
It does. The blue SUV is the one that was able to actually turn over that curb faster than I could and got out in front of me. And he parked directly in front of where that, well, before I even go there, as we entered the gas station parking area, the Impala went all the way to the right of all of the gas pumps. I think there were 3 different sets. Went all the way to the right and then turned completely around and was driving facing us. I pulled off to the left of this blue SUV behind some pumps so that we could exit our vehicle. This blue SUV pulled directly in front of the silver Impala, and then the white pickup I did see as I was parking, he pulled up behind the Impala and actually came right up to the left rear bumper of that Impala. At this point, Agent White and I exited my vehicle, and we went around to this passenger side of this blue SUV, which is a Bernalillo County Sheriff's unit.
So does this photo show where you were standing?
It does not. I'm not in this photo, obviously, but I was standing at the front passenger door of this blue SUV facing directly at the silver Impala.
Your Honor, may the witness step down? Can you come down here and just use my pen and show us exactly where you were standing?
I was parked to the left of this blue SUV. We exited, came around the back of the SUV, and were standing here at the front passenger side door of the SUV facing towards the silver Impala.
And at this point, what did you have with you? What were you doing? Sorry.
I was Agent White. Again, he had his rifle, so he was standing in front of me as my cover. I did have my pistol drawn, but I was at a low ready, standing offset from him just to the right and behind him, using him as my cover. And I was the one that was giving verbal commands to the occupants of the silver Impala.
Okay, and by the occupants inside, could you see who was inside?
Initially, when the vehicle made the U-turn and over the curb, my headlights shined into the inside of the vehicle, and I could see that there were 3 people inside of the vehicle at that point, or from what I could see. There was one in the driver's seat, one in the front passenger seat, and then one in the rear seat of the vehicle.
Okay, and at the point that you're here in the photo, could you see more clearly anything about the people inside the vehicle?
I could see that there was a person in the driver's seat, and then a male in the front passenger seat, and then another person in the back seat.
Okay, and then what did you do from there?
At that point, began giving verbal commands to, first I wanted to render the vehicle immobile by taking the driver out of the vehicle. So I gave verbal commands that the driver, well, first that all of them show me their hands, and they did comply. At that point, had the driver exit out the driver's side door and then turn and walk backwards towards officers that were located somewhere down in this area. I'm not sure who they were. I never saw them. I continued to have my focus on the vehicle.
Okay, what can you tell us about the driver?
At first, I thought that the driver was a male until they told me later on that it was a female. Other than that, I think clothing-wise, I believe she was wearing red shorts and a red jersey, but I'm not sure on the clothing.
And the back passenger, which side was the back passenger sitting on?
Actually, when I first got visual, was peeking in between the two front seats. One hand on either one of those seats kind of pulled forward, and then when I ordered them to show me their hands, kind of sat back a little bit, raised the hands off of the seat, and pushed them forward. Yes.
Oh,
I'm
yes.
sorry.
Sorry, Your Honor.
Would you like me to sit back there?
No, because I think I want you to continue, but can you just address the jury, please? Okay, so just to clarify, so the driver, you had them come out, and how did you have them come out?
Had the driver exit out by reaching out the window opening the door from the outside so that I could keep their hands in view. The driver opened the door, let it come all the way open, and then stepped out, keeping their hands where I could see them. Had them turn around and face away from me so that we could not only have a little bit better vantage point on them as they turned around to see what they could potentially have on them, and then had them walk backwards to me with their hands so that I could see them, so raised above their shoulders, and then walk backwards. And I continued to call them backwards and had the driver step actually a couple of steps to the right so that they would bypass me and go directly to the officers who were behind me as an arrestee. While the driver did that, I continued to keep my focus forward on the other occupants of the vehicle.
Okay, so once that person was secured, then what did you do?
At that point, Agent White continued with his rifle facing towards the silver Impala, and I called the rear passenger out of the vehicle, and I called them out the driver's side. So again, they came out the same side of the vehicle, stepped out and did the same pattern. Had them keep their hands where we could see them, and turn around and face away from me, and then back up. And again, I believe I had to have them step to the right just a little bit so that they wouldn't run into me, but they could bypass me and go to the arrest team. And I didn't call them out until after the arrest team indicated that they were good and they had another person that could accept that person as they were walking backwards, because I didn't want to jumble them up with too many people while they were busy putting the driver originally into handcuffs and then moving them away so that we could continue to bring them out.
Okay, and what is the purpose of having them walk backwards and all of that process that you just explained to us?
The main purpose is our safety, because we don't know what they have on them at that point. We haven't made contact with them physically, so we do that so that we have a little bit more reaction time. If they were to turn and present any type of weapon, we do that so that we have more reaction time if that were to happen.
And what can you tell us about the rear passenger of the vehicle?
I don't remember much of the rear passenger, what they were wearing, anything like that. I believe it was a female.
Okay. And then what did you do?
At that point, I began speaking to the front passenger and had them do the exact same thing, keeping their hands in view. I didn't want them to get out of the passenger side door because, as you can see from where we were, that we would have lost sight of them temporarily. So I went ahead and called the front passenger out the driver's side door. So I had them cross over the center console, out the driver's side door, keeping their hands where I could see them, and then again the same pattern, having them raise their hands, turn around and face away from me, and then walk backwards towards me. And not knowing if there was anybody else inside the vehicle, we had them, I again had that front passenger bypass me and go to the arrest team that was behind me, while Agent White and I kept our focus on the vehicle, not knowing if there was anyone else in there that we couldn't see at that point.
Do you know who that front passenger was?
At that point, I did not. Later on, I asked the sheriff's deputies or somebody with the sheriff's department if that was Andrew Romero, and they did confirm that the vehicle had been Andrew Romero.
Did you have any contact with any of the occupants of the vehicle?
I did not. Other than the verbal commands and then having them bypass me, I did not have any contact with them.
Did you transport any of the occupants of the vehicle?
I did not.
Okay, thank you. Now take your seat. So once all of the occupants of the vehicle were secured, what did you do after that?
At that point, Agent White was on the phone several times again, trying to find out what they wanted us to do next. At that point, we were told, we need you to interview the people that were inside of the store, and the sheriff's department was going to do the transport of these 3 people. Before I made it to the store, we were told the aircraft had identified that something had been thrown out of the vehicle as it was making the turn in the gas station parking lot, and somewhere in the northeast corner of the store parking lot, or I'm sorry, northeast corner of the store, which was actually the parking lot closest to the store. I don't know what agency he was with, walked with me into that area, and at that point we saw that there was a firearm laying on the pavement in the parking lot. We didn't want to move it or touch it in any way, so we found a traffic cone that was in the parking lot, and we put it next to that, and then alerted other officers that were immediately in our area not to step on, in that area, just to stay away.
All right. So you did not handle the firearm at that time?
That's correct. I did not.
And did you know that it was a firearm prior to going and checking to see what had been thrown?
I did not.
All right. So after you put the traffic cone next to that, where did you go from there?
At that point, I went inside of the store and began interviewing the employees that were there.
Okay. And who did you speak to?
I don't remember their names. There was a male and there was a female employee. I could look at my report, but I don't remember their names off the top of my head.
All right. Based on the information that you were told by those employees, what did you do?
Took their statements and identified that the female had actually seen when that firearm was thrown from the vehicle, and I documented that in my report. The male subject, the male employee, he said that he didn't have very good vision. He had seen all of the police lights, and he immediately went to the back of the store, so he didn't, in effect, see very much.
Okay. And the female, did she give you any other information that caused you to do anything else?
Yes. She indicated that...
Okay, so what I'm asking is, what did you do based on what she told you?
Based on what she told me, we went back out and confirmed that what we had seen in the parking lot was a firearm.
Okay. And then, did you receive any other information from that point?
Yes, later on, well, from that point, no. I cleared from that area after I was assigned to seal the vehicle, the silver Impala. So I sealed that vehicle with crime scene tape, and then it was left for our crime scene team, and I left that area. I left the gas station.
Okay. Your Honor, may I have just a moment?
You may.
Okay, and what were you advised to do after that?
At that point, I went back to the state police office and was doing some other work, speaking with some other agents, and I was assigned by Sergeant Lucero, or I'm not sure if it was Sergeant Lucero or one of the other agents, to go back into the Rio Rancho area to look for the silver Dodge Durango. At that point, Agent White and I went back into the Rio Rancho area. We were directed to go behind a McDonald's in the, I believe it's McMahon and Unser area. We went back and we began driving in the residential areas there, and we did locate a silver Dodge Durango. It did have the C&M sticker and the registration plate that I had said earlier, the 331 RAT.
I'm showing you what's been entered as State's Exhibit 302. Is this how you remember finding the Dodge Durango?
It is. I actually believe that I took this photo. The vehicle was facing kind of a north-west direction there on the street. It was near the corner of Finland and Kavanaugh. The house itself that it was parked in front of was on Kavanaugh.
Okay. And what are the streets like in that neighborhood?
Very twisty, kind of set back away from the main road, and they curve around quite a bit.
All right. I'm showing you what's been entered as State's Exhibit 304. What are we seeing here?
It's a rear view of that same Dodge Durango. with the CNM sticker in the lower left-hand corner as it was described, and then the registration plate, it's kind of blurry there, but it's 331 RAT.
Showing you what's State's Exhibit 305. Is that a better picture?
Much better. It is the same license plate.
Okay. And finally, this is State's 303. Now, as you were taking these photographs, were you entering the vehicle?
I did not. I didn't even check the handles to see if the doors were unlocked. I took the photographs from the outside. I did read the vehicle identification number that's on the dash through the windshield, but that's the closest that I got to that vehicle.
So what did you do to process this vehicle from here?
At that point, I sealed all of the doors and entry points with evidence tape, and then initialed and dated that and waited for a tow truck to come to my location.
And what happened with the vehicle from there?
The vehicle was towed from that area and taken to the state police office. I did follow the tow truck with the vehicle, and it was placed inside of our secure garage.
Where this vehicle was found, can you see it from the main roads?
You cannot.
And what are the main roads around there, do you know?
The main roads are McMahon and Unser, or the major intersection, and then I don't remember what the name of the road is that travels back behind the McDonald's, and then it goes around a couple of corners, and then that's where this vehicle was located, back to the south of that McDonald's.